I know that lately the meme has kind of been that I've become a resistance lib or a resist lib, whatever the term is, like the liberal like wine moms who watch like last week. Well, last week tonight with John Oliver is really good. The one with Trevor Noah, and like they have the "I'm still with her" shirts, and they're like very, very Orange Man bad to an arguably cringe degree, if it was even possible to be that like against Trump. Like, it's more bordering on an actual obsession with hating on him. You know the kind, right? We've joked about that, and how we love Biden, and how Biden is the GOAT and everything. But in all reality, I am far more progressive than I think most liberals would identify as. And a surprisingly progressive opinion, if you know your politics, is, well, being pro-gun. I am, in fact, quite pro-gun. I love guns. I think that while there is plenty of sensible gun, not gun control, but gun policy. I don't like the term gun control, but while I do think there is some sensible gun policy that's very valid, and I think even pretty pro-gun Republican politicians are in favor of. For instance, recently, it was DeSantis who passed a bill that required background checks in a 5-day, or not, well, there already were background checks, sorry, a 5-day waiting period on handgun purchases in Florida. Because Ron DeSantis, for all of his faults, did recognize there was a problem in Florida with gun crime, so he looked at the charts and said, okay, what can we do, the most minimizing, the softest thing we can do to, like, not upset gun owners that will result in a pretty substantial drop in gun crime. And what did they do? They restricted purchases of firearms, specifically handguns, to people who are 21 years or older. You have to be, specifically for handguns, 21 or older in Florida. And there's a 5-day waiting period. So no one can just go and buy their handgun and do something crazy that afternoon, right? The idea is, 5 days later, maybe you've cooled down a bit if you bought your gun to do something impulsive, right? And these were policies passed by Republicans in Florida. Hard red gun love in Florida, where there's really no pushback. Like there's no push for gun control from anybody who is substantially in power in Florida. Like there was no force that made DeSantis do that. Not even the voters were calling for it. So there are even pro-gun monstrous Republicans who recognize that there is sensible gun control policy that can take place. Here's the problem, though. Guns have quickly gone from being a standard political issue about pieces of metal and plastic that can do a given thing, and they've quickly become a cultural issue, where the right has tried its best to claim guns as not just a thing that is useful, fun, and a right for Americans to have, but also an integral part of right-wing culture. Which is ironic when you consider that Donald Trump, the Republican president of all Republican presidents, did practically nothing that I can think of to improve the status of gun ownership in America. Like, he did nothing to make it easier to get a gun or, like, unban any guns that were unobtainable before. He did none of the things that, like, pro-gun people would want. I mean, I guess he was friendly with the NRA, but I thought it was about being pro-gun rights, not pro-NRA. I mean, he passed the Bumpstock Ban, for God's sakes, right? And so I'm very pro-gun. I imagine many of you are too, though if you're not, you're going to hate this segment because we're going to be ripping on a lot of copium from probably you in this video. We're going to be making fun of it. But recently, the Supreme Court, which is mostly Trump, mostly Republican, unfortunate amount of Trump appointees, Supreme Court, recently ruled the Bumpstock Ban, passed by Trump, by the way, unconstitutional. Federally getting rid of it. Bump stocks are now legal again. For those that don't know what a bump stock is, for a while now, it has been pretty much impossible outside of certain states and outside of certain qualifications. I don't know all of them because, frankly, I haven't bothered learning them. I live in such a cucked blue state that you can't even have rifles here. Like, you can't have rifles that aren't bolt action here, and I'm not joking. So I haven't bothered to see what the rules are for getting something that's full auto. But a bump stock effectively allows you to simulate full auto, or maybe even surpass full auto fire rate, with a semi-auto rifle. Generally, an AR-15 is what they're made for. There might be some for other rifles. They might be generally more kind of universal than I know. But I'm sure this will display what they look like and how they work. They basically just use the gun's recoil to like bounce your finger up. Like you put your gun, your trigger finger on a guard that blocks your finger from the trigger, but once you do pull it back, the recoil bounces with a spring kind of mechanism, I'm assuming, and it allows your finger to rapidly pull the trigger back using the speed of the recoil way faster than any human finger ever could. And so, yes, you have a semi-auto rifle that normally can just go bang, 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 but if you put a bump stock on it and perhaps even like a massive magazine on it, you can make that thing roar. And obviously, anti-gun types are very against that, and if you know my position on gun control, it's that everything should be possible to get. At this point, the cat's out of the bag when it comes to guns. There's so many times more guns than people in America. If you want to start dealing with the guns that are out there, which criminals will use to do all the crime after legal, law-abiding citizens aren't allowed to get them anymore, then you're going to have to literally, like, put together the Gestapo to go door to door, kicking down, what is it, like 1 in 4 or 1 in 3, every 1 in 3 Americans' doors, probably every American's doors, to confiscate every third house's guns. And that's just statistically, so it's probably like you go to the country and it's every house is armed. All with people that have outright said publicly, if they come to take my gun, come and take it, right? So, yeah, people have grenade launchers, right? They do have grenade launchers. That's the thing, Galaxy Bombs. So you don't want to be the guy who has to go and take that guy's grenade launchers away. He might use them to protect his grenade launchers. So with that in mind, it's just insane to suggest that, A, we could get rid of the guns that already exist out there, like get rid of them, or like even encourage people to give them up. When gun buybacks happen, there are literally gun rights groups that show up outside and they outbid on the government. You know that, right? Like if there's a gun buyback, there are gun groups that specifically go to the entrance of the gun buyback places. Brendan Herrera did this for a video as like a publicity stunt when he was running for Congress, and They literally offer, they'll literally offer you however much more money that you'll take for the gun than the government will, so that the gun buyback fails. Because the gun buybacks, the government takes the guns and destroys them. But if you instead sell it to the guy who is like out buying, who's, you know, stealing purchases out from the government, you're saving those guns from destruction and keeping them out there in circulation. So even if you try gun buybacks in America, there are massively wealthy groups that'll be there at every gun buyback ready to outbuy what the government is willing to pay for people's guns, to keep them out there in circulation, undestroyed, outside of government armories and lockups and stuff. So there's that aspect. And then, of course, there's the fact that, like, if you look at the rates of, if we actually just outright ban all guns, it would be the Democrats who do that, and it would ruin the Democrats, like, genuinely. If the Democrats dropped guns as, like, their thing that they hate and rail against as a culture war thing, so many more Americans would be proud Democrat voters. Especially with abortion being a pretty strong wedge issue that most Americans agree with the left on. Guns are the thing that are guns and immigration are the thing that make a lot of Americans second guess voting Democrat when they really would otherwise. But the Supreme Court did a rare W, this Republican Supreme Court, and they rolled back the Bumpstock ban. So that means that now simulated full auto fire, and I believe it's been ruled unconstitutional. I don't think states can ban them. And if this is just the beginning, honestly, I'll take it. If out of this awful Supreme Court, we can get a torrent of unchallengeable, unvetoable by the president rollbacks of all these gun policies we've had over the years, like the assault weapons ban and stuff like that, if we can get that rolled back, if we can have like magazine limits and fire rate limits ruled unconstitutional across the entire country in every state, God, that would be awesome. Dude, imagine the copium from the anti-gun people. Imagine the copium. Let's enjoy this copium for now.
I want to bring in MSNBC contributor and retired ATF special agent in charge, Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, it's great to see you. What's your reaction to this first?
Hey, guys. Don't you think it's telling that being pro-gun is the right side of history when the head of the group that is in charge of taking your guns away are the dog-shooting ATF? You know, like the organization that most leftists agree might actually be worse than just normal police. Like they famously are just the nobody likes the ATF. Conservatives don't like the ATF. The left doesn't like the ATF. Nobody except anti-gun liberals seems to like the ATF. So, in case you're wondering who would be in charge of taking the guns away, it's the people who famously are caught on video like every week shooting a dog.
Well, Jose, it's a horrible decision. It's nonsensical. It's sad that the Supreme Court would rule this way. A bump stock clearly turns a semi-automatic rifle into a submachine gun.
It turns it into a full auto rifle, brother. Well, it turns any firearm that can shoot semi-auto into a full auto if it's got the compatibility for it, brother. Now, tell me why that should be illegal, please. Why is it that semi-auto is... Well, now they're saying semi-auto isn't even okay. So why is it that in some states semi-auto isn't okay, but they're not coming for semi-auto in some? Trust me. Like, it's all about slowly boiling the frog of taking away what you're allowed to have. Because of it's just to win over a stupid culture war point. And frankly, the anti-gun policies aren't that popular among, like, a lot of Americans anyway. Like, most Americans, I think, might be in favor of some level of gun policy, but the more specific you get with it, the more shaky that gets, right? Like, I'm anti-gun, but I'm not from the U.S. That's the thing, though. If you're not from the U.S., that's a completely different can of worms. I don't think that our gun situation needs to come to your country, right? The problem is America is in a very unique situation where for about centuries, literally centuries since the founding of our country, everyone being armed with not just one gun, but like a lot of guns has been the norm. Like going back to cowboy days all the way up to today. Generally, if you meet an American, it's like kind of weird if they don't own a gun, right? Like you'll ask them, hey, you own a gun? And you're like, no, I don't have one. Like, I'll have to rent one when we go to the range. And it's like, huh, that's strange, you know? Like, it is kind of weird when you meet someone who doesn't have a gun in America, depending on where you live, especially in like the South. So keep that in mind. A lot of Americans own guns and require them. A lot of Americans need them based on, hell, whether it be their job or just the life they live. It's easy to forget, like if you live in a city or something, there are a lot of Americans who live where there are mooses and bears and shit like that. And rattlesnakes too, which obviously you don't need anything crazy for a rattlesnake, but you know, you don't want to end up in a bad situation. Sometimes you got like a rattlesnake that's like in your barn or got into your house and there's only one thing for it. Get the 308. No, that'd probably be a little overkill. You'd probably want like either 22 or honestly, you'd probably want, what is it? 332? Is that what that thing shoots? My piston air rifle over there? I think that shoots like 223. Yeah, I think it's 223, not 332. I don't know why I mixed it up. Honestly, that I could probably fire indoors at like a bug and not hurt my wall. Well, it would hurt the wall. It'd definitely like go through the wall. But if I shot at the floor, that air rifle there, I'd probably it'd probably be fine. Like if there was like, say, like a spider or a roach on the floor and I decided to use that to kill it, I think it would probably just dent the carpet and it would explode the bug, assuming I hit it. I wouldn't do that, but you could probably shoot a snake with that thing. Yeah, that'd probably be fitting.
The cyclic rate of fire is similar to that of a submachine gun. The trigger is pulled once, and the explosive action of the cartridges keeps firing the weapon. And that's what the 1934 Congress tried to define. If you see that shooter there, his trigger's held. He's not moving his trigger finger. His trigger finger is held still. The explosion sends the gun back against his shoulder. In a tradition.
Notice how there's no like explanation for how this is so much worse than any other gun. What you'll notice is all this logic is so focused on it sort of reminds me of how the right talks about trans people. Have you noticed that, right? Like, they're not really willing to say Americans will buy these and they will hurt people with it. They just kind of describe tongue-in-cheek the capabilities of what it allows, with the implication that, of course, people will use this to do horrible things, and thus that means no one should have the freedom to own it at all, no matter what. It should be an all-around ban. No one should be allowed to have it. It should be a prison sentence to own it. Remember, guys, when we're talking about gun policy, what we're talking about isn't policy that prevents and policy that punishes when things actually are done that are bad. We're talking about policy that will almost exclusively be used to punish, like, as an addition, right? You know how, like, Hunter Biden's getting gone after because he was, like, a crack addict while owning guns? That is a thing that's, like, rarely ever pursued by police unless you've already done something illegal. Then if you have drugs and guns, you'll get in trouble for that. But drugs and guns are very rarely something the police care about on their own unless you're also getting in their attention for something else, right? Still, I would very much like to see, like, weed become non-scheduled so I can smoke weed and own guns, because I miss weed, dude. I fucking miss it. I really, really do. I really fucking do, guys. I think weed addiction's real because I miss it. But yeah, like, they really do need to make that whole scheduling system. They need to stop that. But like I said, these policies don't prevent anything. They'll just be used after either A, against people who simply committed the crime of owning something like this, or B, they'll be used after someone's already done a horrible thing. This won't stop anyone from doing anything awful. Wait, what? What stopped you doing weed? I stopped smoking weed when I got into guns because you know it's a felony to, like, use weed and own a gun, right? Even if A, like, owning a gun is legal where you are, and B, smoking weed is legal where you are, because weed is a scheduled substance, I had to quit. I had to. Now I'm just doing nothing but nicotine. I got a couple different types of different nicotine vapes to, like, vary the flavor, because I was used to switching between two different flavors of vape, but yeah, had to quit weed, and it's not fun. So yeah, hopefully Biden deschedules weed for real, for real.
Additionally, manufactured submachine gun, only the slide goes back, which is the top of the gun. And so basically this was a too clever by halfway to get around the law. And the ATF director interpreted it appropriately, said it is a submachine gun. And the Supreme Court just, lost their common sense. I mean, we're a nation based on common law, but apparently not common sense. And
mind you, I don't even think the majority of Americans supported the Bumpstock ban. What was the support on the Bumpstock ban? Oh, wait, here we go. The Hill in 2017. 82% support a ban on bump stocks. More than 8 in 10 Americans favor a ban on devices that allow owners to modify semi-automatic rifles to mimic the fire of automatic weapons, according to an NPR Ipsos poll out Friday. Oh, an NPR Ipsos poll. Okay, this could be solid or it could be cringe. 82% of respondents say that so-called bump stocks should be banned. Similar numbers favor banning assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, 79% and 78% respectively. Do you want to know what always goes wrong with these polls? If you ask in one forum, you get a rate of 80% in favor of a ban, and if you ask in another, you get a rate of 80% against. Wherever you ask, if you go to fucking Tampa, Florida, 80% of people are going to be against it. You go to New York City, 80% of people are going to be for it. So I don't know, like, what crowd are we selecting for here? Here, let me see. NPR Ipsos poll. How are they conducted? I want to know if Americans are actually super against bump stocks. Wait, it's an online email poll from a website called Ipsos that's connected. Okay. Yeah, no shit. If you listen to NPR and you sign up to be part of their poll, no wonder 80% of people who signed up for the NPR Ipsos poll, of course they, oh my God. The bump stocks mimic full auto, and that is why technically it is not illegal by the Supreme Court, because it doesn't actually change the semi-auto to full auto. Yeah, I mean, like, by the writing of the law, it doesn't. But frankly, I just at this point want the Supreme Court to rule all bans on anything gun-related unconstitutional federally, and I want liberals to cope and seethe. And on top of that, I want the liberals to fix their perspective on guns. I think that every single politician that tries to pass an anti-gun law should have to go to the range and fire a gun, like a pistol and a rifle and a shotgun, just at least once on camera, so we all know it's real. And then they get to like go in on the policy. Once they've recognized, wait a second, that was fun. Wait, you mean to tell me that shooting high velocity chunks of metal at paper and sometimes even other metal and trying to be accurate about it is actually fun? You guys are doing this for fun? Whoa. Once that realization is had by a lot of people, their perspective on guns tends to change a lot. I know it did for my mom. I know it did for me even. I was never anti-gun, but I definitely was more... I wasn't as pro-gun as I am now until after I began shooting guns. Because after you shoot your first... Like, the first time you shoot a gun, it's like, whoa. That was fun. You know,
it's akin to a boater hanging 4 tires off the side of his boat, and when the Coast Guard stops him saying, well, this is a car, so you have no authority over me. I mean, this...
It's bad because it means that the ATF doesn't have authority over you. You realize that's what he just said, right? Like, it's so bad. Like, it's like hanging 4 tires over the side of your boat and thinking, we don't have authority over you. You know, what do you mean? We should always have authority over you. We're the ATF.
It's really a sad time for a court to make that kind of ruling. And the argument
Jim,
that you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering about that because you are absolutely correct. And the fact is that what is it that a machine gun means, right? And so if you pull that trigger once and for whatever reason, regardless of the technology used behind it,
it's just can you tell how much like maybe the ATF guy definitely has his whole he knows that it's all bullshit, and he knows like the rates of use for like he knows that like bump stocks on a rifle are not what are being used in anywhere near a significant amount of gun crime in this country. It's just a scary thing that they can tie the culture war to like ban guns to in order to gain public support. In the same way the right implies that, or outright states, maybe the 1 in a trillion chance that like a trans woman going into a woman's bathroom could be a predator and could see a little girl in there unattended and do something awful. Like they'll either, for a while they just implied it, now they just outright state it will happen, and they fearmonger on this like sounds right to me, I guess, kind of possibility people just don't really think about too much or look into the data on or anything like that. Hey, Zan, can I ask your opinion on Glock switches? Well, it's just like the same as anything else, right? Like, as long as you go through the steps and procedures in order to prove you're a safe person and you're not going to be, like, a danger to society with a gun, you should be able to get anything. Like, and it's like that in a lot of red states. And those red states don't have insanely high rates of gun violence. I'll tell you where the highest rates of gun violence are, though. It's in cities, which tend to be blue, with the highest rates of gun control, because, frankly, little concealable pistols are being used in a lot of, like, gang violence and just high-density people being in a lot of people in one small area kind of crime that just happens when you've got a lot of people. It's ironic, but, like, the gun violence is heavily centralized in blue areas. So it just... when you look at the stats, bump stocks and even full auto guns are not like the thing that are causing American deaths. You know, it is a true stat, though it is a little bit weighed by, it's been oversimplified, and I wish some more context was added to it when it was brought up. Guns in America are the #1 cause of death in children, meaning under 18, when I say children. And that is a true stat. You'll hear it very often by anti-gun types. The fact is, about 70% of that stat, probably more, is gang violence. A lot of young men in the inner city are killed in shootouts, whether it be they were involved in it or just around. Bullets go pretty far and fast and straight, and you know they can go through walls. They're known to do that, and you know kids get hurt. So there is a lot of like actual proper gun crime that is happening, and a lot of young kids in neighborhoods where there is a lot of gun crime, mostly in the inner city, they end up being the victim. That's where a lot of it is coming from. That is where a lot of it is coming from. You'd think it's the school shootings and like the mall shootings and stuff you're always hearing about. Those are a pretty unique to America problem, but those are statistically a drop in the bucket compared to how much gun violence is just generally consistently happening and how often the victims are American children.
The weapon continues to fire. That is, in and of itself, what a machine gun is. Where am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. And look, in 1934, the National Firearms Act was a result of the gangsterism of the 30s. In 1933, 4 law enforcement officers were killed at the Kansas City train station, the Kansas City Union train station, when Pretty Boy Floyd, with a submachine gun, tried to break out, Frank Nash.
So, have you ever noticed anything about how historically, when you look back at American politics, and for centuries or decades, a thing existed, and there wasn't really a problem with it, right? And then a thing happened. A thing that was massively focused on by the government and the media, perhaps even over-exaggerated to a degree to drive up ratings and, keep that 24-hour news cycle. It's become, standard, rolling constantly with lots of ratings, to focus on these things and then try to argue because this tragedy has happened, you have to lose a freedom or a lot of freedoms. How often has this happened that you can think of? Like this general idea that a thing existed for a while, or a thing was the way it was, one tragedy happens that was arguably a fluke or could be prevented or handled with a separate solution, but the justification or immediately after, the reaction is, aren't you afraid of this happening again? Why don't you give up some of your freedoms? We'll keep you safe. How many times has that happened? And tell me how many times it's been a good thing. How many times has it been a good thing when everyone was like, you know what? Yeah, government, we'll give up some of our freedoms. We think you are the people to make sure that our best interests are constantly met. It's like, listen, I'm not one of those super anti-government types, but come on. This is some of the most overt, like, I am the head of the ATF trying to convince you to support taking away your right to own firearms so that we are the only ones who have the firearms. That is the government, right? And I'm not even talking about the idea that, like, oh, now you can't do revolution or something. I'm just talking about how blatantly unfair it is that, like, the government gets to say you don't get to have guns, they get to have them, all the while pretending like the vast majority of Americans who own guns don't own them to either A, defend themselves and their property if things ever went horribly wrong, or B, just for the simple fun of marksmanship. Like, have you guys ever seen an anti-gun advocate acknowledge the fun of marksmanship? I'm genuinely asking this right now. Do you think in this segment at any point they will do a little bit of like a, listen, people who are, against this ban, like, I get that you like to be able to shoot something full auto. It's fun. You go to the range and, go, it's fun. But don't you see how the potential danger could be a real problem? Don't you think losing a little bit of your freedoms is worth the protect? Like, they don't even try to, like, acknowledge that there is a reason for these things other than being a ticking time bomb, right? Like, the only reason to own a bump stock is because you're a ticking time bomb, and that's it. That's the implication here.
It was being transported to the federal prison at Leavenworth. They tried to break him out, and they killed 4 law enforcement officers. 2 Kansas City officers, a chief of police from Oklahoma, and an FBI agent were killed by submachine guns. And that was the last in a string of those.
Mind you, once again, stopping the sale, banning the sale of these things does nothing. Maybe in 100 or 200 or more years, I don't know, guns can last a really long time, actually. It might be like closer to 500 years from now. Maybe 500 years from now, we could see a very substantial drop in the amount of guns in America if we just had a wholesale banning, like hardcore banning of all sales of guns and gun accessories. In like 500 years, America could be at like Canada levels of guns, right? The problem is, for all those 500 years of American history, if it lasts that long, the people who will have guns will be exclusively criminals. Like, think about it. If it is literally, you will go to federal prison for owning a gun, or hell, even the piece of plastic that we're talking about here, the bump stock, only the criminals will have them. People who plan to do crime and go to prison if they're caught regardless will have them. And trust me, they'll be able to get them. There are several times more guns than people in America, and plenty of them are capable of doing horrible things with what capabilities those guns have. They're still out there, right? And they're going to still be out there. And so once you're not allowed to buy guns anymore, like once you can't go out and legally buy one anymore, no matter how clean you've kept your nose, even if you don't do drugs, you have a perfect state of mental health, no criminal history, all of your exes say you were the best boyfriend ever or girlfriend ever, and the only reason you broke up was because things didn't work out and they have no fear of you being a potential danger to them, even if you have like glowing reports from your like friends and family and ex-employers and peers and coworkers saying that you should be allowed to own a gun. Even then, when you're not allowed to own a gun, I promise you, you'll be scared when you realize the only people who have guns now and can have guns now are the people who want to commit crimes. Many of them, the ones that involve hurting people. And now they're a supervillain pretty much. Like if you're unarmed and you're not allowed to be armed, by the way, like, no one's going to be able to come to save you besides the police if you think they're good at their job and trustworthy and quick and good at it. Like, no one will be able to save you. You won't be able to save yourself. Whoever will want to hurt you, if someone does want to hurt you, they'll probably have a gun and you won't. And if you do, and you defend yourself with it, you'll go to federal prison. Longer than whoever was going to hurt you would have gone for hurting you and getting caught, I'm sure. So yeah, trust me, you don't want to go down this rabbit hole, okay? You don't want to go down the banning guns rabbit hole. It's such a bad. America is in a very unique situation. I would not say this is true of like Australia or really even Canada, although maybe to a degree, or the UK. I'm not trying to imply that like we need to ship off a ton of guns to like Australia and New Zealand and make it like here, but I am saying that if you aren't American and anti-gun, and you think, well, why don't you just do what's happened here? It worked fine here. I promise you, it won't work. It won't work here. It won't. It just won't. It won't. It won't work.
And Congress said, hey, no more of these gangsters type weapons. No more submachine guns that aren't controlled and.
No more of these gangster type weapons. Hey guys, do you want to know what was happening famously when the first big anti-full auto rifle gun control policies passed? Do you guys know what was like? What was happening when those big anti-gun policies were first becoming popular? What was going on? You maybe? Yeah. Famously, the Black Panthers open carried. They walked around neighborhoods shadowing cops. They went to protests and stood outside courthouses and sometimes inside, as you can see here, and mayor, like the mayor's building and stuff. With, I mean, I think that's an M14. What's it called? I think I'm fucking it up. It's a World War II gun. It's actually pretty cool. I think fuck. I think it's semi-auto. I think I've shot one of these before. Have I shot? Yeah, it's an M14A. Wait, no, Vosh has one. I've shot one of these before. Yeah, no, Vosh literally has one of these, like exactly one of these. Probably because of like its frequent use and ownership among Black Panthers, probably. But yeah, I went to the range with them and I shot that. Yeah, I mean it's a type of M14. Yeah. Anyway, pretty cool, pretty neat. The Black Panthers were really neat. They were cool. We love the Black Panthers. Let's see, any other cool pictures of them? I like this one where they're standing in front of the courthouse. They're holding shotguns here, though. Not as cool when they just have shotguns, I'm not gonna lie. Although, they get to wear the bandoliers, that's why. No, they were right to have the shotguns. See these two? They're wearing bandoliers of shotgun shells. That goes hard as fuck, and I get it. I get it. It goes hard as fuck. So yeah, to emphasize, by the way, I think he might have just tapped in there for a second to, like, his old, anti-civil rights era self, you know? Like, he got flashback to the 60s there for a second when he said, we want to ban these gangster guns, you know?
The last in a string of those.
To be clear, gun control started because of racism in this country. Like, the first gun control in America started to make it so black people couldn't have guns to defend themselves from getting lynched when, like, the local cuckboy decided that he was upset that his wife wouldn't fuck him enough, so he was going to accuse, like, the nearest black guy, the first black guy he sees of like, raping his wife to get him lynched, because he needs to, like, do something to get his male frustration out. And like take it out on a minority. So they passed those initial anti-gun laws specifically to outlaw black people owning guns, specifically black men from carrying or owning guns. Mind you, in a time when like everybody walked around with a gun on their hip because there was like ruffians about and like it was Red Dead Redemption 2 times, you know? It's like you can't walk outside of a town in Red Dead 2 without getting attacked by something. It was like that back then. And they didn't let black people carry guns in many southern states after the Civil War. In fact, well, the racism goes deeper than that, but that was a big part of it too.
And Congress said, hey, no more of these gangsters type weapons. No more submachine guns that aren't controlled and regulated. So now we're going to control and regulate them. And, of course, the forerunner of the ATF was...
Control and regulate them. No. Outright ban. Nuh-uh-uh-uh. It's not controlling and regulating. I'm in favor of controlling and regulating. I like that I had to jump. I wish I had to jump through more hoops to get a gun, frankly. I don't care. I don't care if it takes me 3 months from the time I decide I want to get a gun and I go into the gun store and I pick it out until I get it. I don't care if it takes 3 months or 6 because they've got to do so many background checks or whatever. I don't care. I'll jump through all the hoops. I'll sign a million piles of paperwork. I'm fine with that. That kind of stuff prevents some asshole from easily obtaining a gun legally and then going and shooting someplace up and making all gun owners look bad, because the worst cases are when some 19-year-old went and legally bought a gun and later that afternoon went and committed a crime with it. That is what makes gun owners and our current process for getting a gun look weak, bad, and makes people in favor of these regulations. But regulating is very different from banning, which is what this is in favor of, outright banning. But notice they won't even say that. They won't even admit they want to outright ban it, which is what the Bumpstock Ban did. They talk about it like we're just restricting and regulating, you know?
Just then the Bureau of Prohibition, you know, we all know the history of Elliot Ness, and so they were given the responsibilities to enforce those laws, and, you know, that's been...
Oh, yeah, you get a lot of people like this that, that like, argue with a lot of emotion, and, like, I'm going to respond to this comment here because a lot of people, like, this comment's inevitable, you know, and people are really emotional when they say it, so they think it's a good argument, but it's really not a good argument. You know, it's the same logic as, like, arguing it's okay to be racist because you were almost or were sexually assaulted by, like, a black guy or something, right? It's like, what? Like, okay, sure, a bad thing happened to you. That doesn't mean that, like, your tragedy means It's bad, but someone said, I just find it so cool and base that Zan thinks that gun control is the devil. I didn't say gun control is the devil. While my school was almost shot up. I like Zan overall, but his gun takes make me want to rip my hair out. Never mind, immediately shown I was wrong about his takes. I take the L. Okay, good. All right. All right, you're forgiven. But no, like, I get where you're coming from here. Some people get really emotional on this, right? Some people have lost family to gun crime. Many people have. Many people have been nearly victims of gun crime. Me and my mom have been shot at before. And somehow that was less nerve-wracking than the time that I ran a dungeon in FF14 and I living deaded right before the squad wipe, and then I was the last one alive and there was 10% health in the boss and I soloed it to death with the entire team cheering me on, and then everyone clapped. I'm not making it up. I know I said then everyone clapped, but they actually did. It was awesome. Somehow that made my blood run more than when that guy fired a shotgun at us in the woods in North Carolina. But like, I know what you're talking about here, you know? My mom, after that experience, was so fucking scared of guns that when I kept trying to convince her to just go to the range and shoot some guns, she was just, I would try to show her videos of just, here is gun safety, okay? Like this is just a video that explains gun safety. And you're going to learn from the video if you watch it. Like, it's going to make you feel more confident that you know, like, how to handle it. And she was just like, no, I'm going to throw up if I watch that video, because she would get so nervous about it. Eventually, I convinced her to go to the range with me on my last birthday, on my 24th birthday, about a year ago. And went to the range. She shot a gun for the first time. She emptied the magazine. And then, like, what we were going to do is she was going to shoot first, and then I'd load a magazine and it'd be my turn to shoot. That's what we started with. That was my, like, don't worry, after you fire the magazine, I'll go next. You can just chill and you don't have to shoot anymore. And she's like, okay, I'll shoot one magazine and then I don't have to shoot anymore. Okay, cool. I'll go out into the lobby after I finish my magazine. You can have fun for the rest of the day. I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was just grinning, knowing that's not how it's going to go. She finishes that magazine and I simply asked her, I loaded the other magazine while you were shooting. You want to do another one? And she said, yes. And she took the magazine, and I showed her how to, and she had loaded it, and she loaded the gun and immediately started shooting more. And for like the next 4 or 5 magazines, I just loaded the rounds for her and just let her just go ham and let her fall in love. And by the time she was done with her like Swiss cheesing of the target that I'd put maybe like 8 feet down range, she's a good shot. She's like bad eyesight, but still a good shot. She's like, I liked that, you know? The only thing she doesn't like is the fact that you got to be around other people shooting. She doesn't like that at all. But my mom was literally traumatized by guns to the point of nearly vomiting if I put on a video about shooting guns, because the stress of the idea of going to the range. To when we got home, she was like, okay, Alex, what do you think I should get for my first gun? I'm like, yeah, I'm so proud. But like, I get it. But you got to realize that there's absolutely ways to build policy around guns to make it completely like safe and ensure that people who aren't obvious red flags or even subtle red flags can't legally arm themselves, all the while allowing people who are law-abiding, safe citizens to jump through the necessary hoops to prove that they're safe and good to get a gun legally. And as long as they keep their nose clean from there, they don't lose their guns, right? When are you getting your mom a deagle? No, she likes stuff that's much more pew pew pew, as she says. So I'm probably going to, like, for her birthday, give her the money to buy a 22 like pistol or something. She'd probably really like that. Just a nice little plinking pistol.
The way America's been for years, and then there was a ban on civilian ownership in 1986 for machine guns not already possessed. So this is a two.
Hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Here's $250 in cash. Or I guess. Well, yeah, it'd have to be cash to be like a gift I can hand to her. Go to the gun store, pick out a nice 22 pistol, sign the paperwork, and we'll go and pick it up in like however many days to make you do it here.
Too clever way by half. That video you just showed on the feed is the tell-all right there that the Supreme Court is wrong. Look at that shooter. I can tell you that his finger is not manually going back and forth.
Yeah, that's really the key.
That's
the
key.
key. Let's look at that. I don't know if we have. Let's go to that video, because I think it's important that we do that.
Watch that video.
It's the single pull of the trigger. It's look at the finger.
Look, he's not moving his trigger finger. He's just, and I'm not talking about not.
What is what is happening? I'm genuinely so confused here. Man, I really wish that like gun YouTube wasn't so dominated by like literal Confederates so that like there could be some like left-wing content that's like I guess that's me, but I want to be able to enjoy someone else's content that is from a left-wing perspective ripping on this dumb shit. God, I hate that I got to be the guy to do it. I hate it.
That one, but the one where the gun is actually firing, because the other one, there's no explosion, so you can't see it clearly. But when he's firing the gun, it's the explosion of the cartridge. That's it right there. Just run that. The explosion of that cartridge is what makes the gun go back and fire again. So we can argue how they interpret it, but here's...
I don't give a fuck. Explain why it is bad for gun to be able to go... That's how it sounds, by the way. When you shoot a full auto gun, it makes that noise. I don't know why, but it just does. In real life, you can't hear it over video. You've got to be there in person. You have to take your hearing protection off. Trust me.
It's the bottom line. They're dead wrong, and they're dead wrong for America.
Don't do that.
I would just say this quickly, Jose. This argument that the ATF director can't interpret the law. Look, I was a law enforcement officer for 36 years.
I can tell.
Interpret the law every day, all day. When you make a traffic stop, you interpret the law. Was the guy careless driving? Was he reckless driving? You have to interpret the law. Every lawyer...
What he means by that is, like, it's up to the cop whether or not you're going to go to jail or you're going to get a warning.
Interprets the law all day. Every judge does as well. So if you say a state trooper can't interpret the law and decide whether he was careless driving, he's got to call in and get a judge to decide that. But you can't have...
Mind you, pro-gun people argue that, like, case-by-case interpretations of the law should be how guns are handled. That a all-in-one ban of a thing or a gun or a type of gun is bad, which is what these people push for. Meanwhile, he's trying to argue like they're taking the like reasonable compromise position. Like they're not literally advocating to take away, at this point, literally everything. Like it used to be for a long time, like at least you could have a semi-auto rifle because at least anti-gun types accepted those are good for hunting, right? But now hunting is seen as like an invalid reason to own guns now. I guess it's like seen as a conservative thing to do, I suppose. And so now hunting isn't seen as a valid thing. And so semi-auto guns are getting banned all over the place. California and my state of Washington, notably. As of like a year and a half ago, you can't buy semi-auto rifles here anymore. That means all rifles you can buy from here on out have to be bolt action, which means you can go bang, bang. And trust me, it won't stop there. Because for a long time, the wall was semi-auto rifles. Like, at least semi-auto rifles will remain untouched. It's the ones that go brrr they're worried about, not the ones that go bang, 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 bang. Now it's the ones that go bang, 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 bang. How long till it's the little ones that go bang, 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 bang? And then what happens when it's the big ones that can go bang, bang? When do they decide, why do we even allow people to have guns at all?
A country like that. And the ATF, this is the only item that they decide on. I mean, they get shipped all kinds of, I don't know the numbers, but scores and hundreds of gun add-on devices and all kinds of things that they technically have to look at and rule on and say that is not a firearm, that is a firearm, that's not a machine gun, that's not a silencer, it is a silencer. I mean, I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. Are they now going to be the ATF? Because the country can't work that way. It's just, it's silly, that argument that the administrative law enforcement officer can't make the ruling. At every level of law enforcement officers make rulings. They have to.
Yeah, like I don't know why it went to law enforcement officers have to make rulings. I don't know what the deal is there, but okay. You know what country has pretty solid gun rights despite not being in a place where you'd expect there to be really like solid gun rights? I always bring this up, but Switzerland. Switzerland has, like, pretty solid gun rights. I want to try to find a video that doesn't have insane copyright. But they've got a surprising amount of guns in Switzerland. They've done gun buybacks there, but you're still allowed to shoot. I'm trying to find one that's not copyrighted. Oh, here's one.
Hello.
I think this one's probably not a copyrighted video. All those big YouTubers copyright the fuck out of their content.
Hello and welcome
like
to
Tom
Bloke
Scott.
Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range. Quite literally.
I don't know if full auto or semi-auto is allowed in Switzerland, though. That's the big question. I don't know if it's allowed, and I don't know if you're allowed to like take your gun home. You might be able to. I'm not sure. Yeah, another thing that's banned in America are suppressors. I don't think you're allowed to have suppressors in America. I think they got banned like a while ago. Maybe they're not, actually. Maybe it's state by state. It's hard to say, because I live in a cucked-ass blue state, so I just know what you can't have here. Zan, what are your thoughts on constitutional/permitless carry laws? I don't like them. I don't like it. Yeah, Florida has constitutional carry, but I still went through the test, like both live range test and the online like read and then answer questions correctly test to get my concealed carry permit in Florida. And then my wallet's over there. I probably shouldn't show it because I think it has like my address on it, you know, but I've also got my Washington concealed carry permit. So I've got a concealed carry permit for Florida and Washington, which those two states having concealed carry permits for these two states means that like roughly 40 of the states in America I can now carry legally in. Because like every Republican state pretty much accepts Florida's concealed carry permit, at least the ones that don't have constitutional carry do. So like I can carry in like Texas, for example, and like Mississippi, Alabama, places like that easily. But then the Washington permit is so much more strict and hard to get. It applies to a ton of blue states and other places that are more strict with their carry laws. So a lot of like the more like the other states, I don't know which ones, like I forget what the list is, but most of the states in the country now, because of two concealed carry permits I have, I can legally conceal carry in. Pretty much just the ones where you're not allowed to have guns at all, I can't. Or the ones you're not allowed to conceal carry at all. Oh, that's cool, Levy. But yeah, I mean, the anti-gun types are going to be Malding and Coping. The fact that, like, the head of the ATF is the person that they found to bring on to explain why it's so bad that the Bumpstock Ban has been undone is pretty telling. When are the ATF the good guys? Like, pretty rarely. Pretty rarely. I think literally last week a story about ATF agents shooting a dog for no reason went viral. So, you know, do with that info what you will. I just think that we need more sensible gun policy that doesn't make it literally impossible if you're a law-abiding good person to get a gun, or a given gun, something that you would like to get for a honest or good reason, right? Like FPS Russia. You know what happened to him, because, you know, the ATF went after him literally, and put him in prison because he had weed and guns. But on top of that, like, his videos were great. He was just out in the countryside blowing up, like, random shit for YouTube videos, and he wasn't hurting anybody, but they still came and got him. The fact is, a lot of Americans, like, live out in the country. They got a lot of land. A lot of them bought that land because they have guns and want to be able to shoot outside their house safely. And, you know, the idea that you shouldn't be allowed to do that, if that's not a valid pastime or enjoyable thing to do, is something that a lot of Americans don't take too kindly to. I'll tell you what. Yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and liked what I had to say, or even if you disliked it, consider dropping a like. I really do appreciate it. Every single thumbs up really goes a long way, as do the comments and the subscriptions down below. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Make sure to follow my social medias down below if you haven't already. And of course, join my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my community, where I do watch parties, call-in streams, game events, and announce all my new uploads and streams. So make sure you're already in there if you're not already. And of course, don't forget, if you want to support me financially, directly, you can always do so, and I'll always appreciate it if you support me, by donating, gifting a sub, or subbing for yourself on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or Patreon. With all that said, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.